Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Blue Raider Podcast, hosted by Jake Bolden and presented by the Conseco Group General Contracting and Mighty Dog Roofing. Don't miss another Tuesday episode by subscribing to the podcast on all streaming platforms or catch our visual presentation uploaded every week on YouTube. Don't miss our next ticket giveaways by subscribing and following on all Blue Raider Podcast social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Blue Raider Pod. Welcome back to the Blue Raider Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bolden. In today's episode, I've got football, I've got basketball with one of your favorites, the voice of the Blue Raiders, Chip Walters. Today we'll be recapping the end of the football season as well as celebrating a little bit of that UAB men's basketball win on Sunday, as well as talk a little bit about the Fort Myers tip-off the Lady Raiders participated in this last weekend over Thanksgiving. And then, of course, our special player interview that I promised you 2 weeks ago that I'm delivering on this week is J-Rock, Jlynn Counter, the point guard for the men's basketball team. So stick around to the end for that. And then, of course, we'll have a very brief Raider wrap-up portion at the end of the episode where we'll go over a little bit more in depth about the football, basketball statistics from this week. But before I get into today's episode, I want to take just a second to thank our sponsors of today's episode, beginning with Mighty Dog Roofing. When it comes to your home, trust Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East for all your needs. As a veteran and locally owned business, we're honored to be one of just 11 Owens Corning contractors nationwide to win their prestigious service award. From roofing and gutters to windows and siding, our expert team delivers top quality craftsmanship and unmatched service. We're here to protect your home with pride and precision. Choose Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East, where excellence is a tradition. Call us today at 615-MD-ROOFS, that's ROOFS, or visit their website at mightydogroofing.com to schedule that free quote today. And also thanks to the Conseco Group. Since 1987, the Conseco Group has been turning dreams into reality, whether it's pre-construction consulting, construction management, design build, or renovations and improvements. We're here to exceed your expectations. At Conseco Group, we don't just deliver, we deliver with passion, precision, and unparalleled quality. Our hands-on approach ensures your investment is maximized and your vision is brought to life. From Clarksville down to Columbia and beyond, trust the Conseco Group to handle every detail with expertise and care. If you're ready to build your future, contact the Conseco Group today at 615-298-9907 or visit their website at consecogroup.com. Again, thanks to Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East and the Conseco Group for sponsoring today's episode. Now, we will get into our first guest. That is the voice of the Blue Raiders. It is at Choose Chip Walters. Mr. Walters, how's it going?
I'm doing good. I'll just tell you, you'll probably hear some noise in the background. I'm actually at a charity bowling event tonight as we record this. And, that'll seem kind of weird for people who see this just after 6 a.m. when it drops. But anyway, here to talk about it. And I appreciate the invite, Jake.
Well, that's going to get me into my first topic here. You have to be the busiest man this time of year. We got football wrapping up, you got basketball, and I think the men's turnaround time there in Myrtle Beach was a great example of how busy you are this time of year.
Well, yeah, I'll take you through that. We left late on Tuesday of that week, going over to Myrtle Beach, had a practice day on Wednesday. Then, and of course, this is following, we had football the previous weekend. You got to Thursday and Friday, had the game on Thursday against Ohio U that went overtime. Then you get South Florida on Friday. Planning for this kind of started a couple of months ago when the schedule came out of for the Myrtle Beach Invitational. We saw that the way the bracket was that Middle was going to play the very first game on Thursday, which meant we would play one of the first two games on Friday. And so I went ahead then and got a flight booked home on Friday night. So I got back to Murfreesboro. I got in my house about midnight Friday night. I was over at the stadium 10 a.m. getting ready for the kickoff for that afternoon against New Mexico State. And then 5 years ago, we did this exact same thing. We played a home football game on Saturday, and like an idiot, I jumped in the car and drove back to Myrtle Beach and got over there at like 4 or 5 in the morning on Sunday morning. But one of the things that we learned that we can do if needed, don't like to do it during COVID, was that we can do games remotely. So what happened on Sunday for the game against Bradley is I ended up back in the radio booth at the football stadium with a TV screen sitting in front of me, and the online stats right to my left. So I call the game from the screen, and then that you turn that around and go right into. I had a coach's show on Monday night, and then come back and play. Go to leave for FIU, or you had Thanksgiving, so that kind of compressed everything. Flew out Friday for FIU, play the games Saturday afternoon, got home about 10:15 Sunday or Saturday night, and then got up and was on the road at 9 o'clock Sunday morning and got to Birmingham about noon. Left a little early, just want to make sure. You never know what I-65 is going to bring you, so I don't like to be late. So got down there, did the game, and I was home by 9 o'clock last night, and now I'm here at Plaster's bowling event, and they're about to meet Santa Claus. So, but this week kind of get a little bit of a breath, and but we've got my schedule this week though on top of the game Wednesday night against Southwestern at Memphis, what it used to be Rhodes, and I've got one championship football game on television Thursday in Division II Class A, and then two championship games on Friday. I've got the 3A and the 5A championship games. Kelly Holcomb and I will be doing those on television, and then we've got basketball on Saturday and at Belmont. So it's another. This week is kind of the final lap in the overlap, and then all of it, and then I can actually take a breath sometime next week. But it's when you can pull it off and make all the connections. It is kind of satisfying to be able to do it, and to go through November and only miss one basketball game. Jeff Him, who does a fantastic job coming out of the bullpen, went to Abilene Christian, but other than that, that was the only basketball game that I'm going to miss this year. Knock on wood.
I was going to say, I mean, you're going to be looking forward to this break you may have in a couple weeks when basketball kind of dies down during finals week. And I'm sure Thanksgiving just passed you by like you didn't even know what even happened with all that travel. So I can't appreciate you enough for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today. Again, as someone that has had their hands in a lot of these sports that we're going to be talking about today. First and foremost, I really want to kind of put a nice little bow on football season, as you touched on, kind of not the ending to the year we thought, especially the New Mexico State game in particular. FIU was always kind of a daunting task because you don't know what FIU team you're going to face. We saw that a good FIU team in that first half, and then you had an opportunity there late to maybe to close that deficit down. You get a little risky. Whether he kicks the field goal or not, you're going to have to get it at some point, and I'm sure you can break that down and dissect it all you can, but it's the difference between a 3-win and a 4-win season, which ultimately doesn't change too much for us. But I want to, before we get into it and really dive deep, there was a part of Coach Mason's post-game presser that he had with Mark Owens that I thought was very interesting, that I think, again, whether you were happy or unhappy with the way that this season ended or how it went, I think that Mason's sentiment here when he talks about his seniors, but really when he talks about the future and this offseason that begins yesterday, the 2nd, as we look forward to this week of signing week and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and take a second. Let's listen to what Mason had to say after that game on Saturday.
Again, our seniors, like, we love them. We didn't give them exactly what they wanted, but they gave us some things to truly build off of. I truly believe in it. This group lacked experience. It lacked a lot of experience. It lacked depth. Okay, and now what we get a chance to do on December 4th, which is signing day, is really start to, overhaul this program in terms of what it looks like. And we start with this high school draft, so to speak. and then we'll go to free agency, okay, man, as we look at retention. Okay, so free agency and retention start, and now this thing will be full speed ahead starting tomorrow. The sun will come up, okay, and this staff has got to meet, talk about where we need to go. But Blue Raider Nation, I'm telling you, this group is taking receipts. The staff, the program, we've taken receipts. We understand what we didn't do in terms of NIL and some of these other functions, but we're full speed ahead. Okay, man, we're going to do what it takes to put this thing on the map and make ourselves a contender in 2025.
There you go. He's taking receipts. He's looking forward, full steam ahead. He says you've got the portal is going to open next week. He's going to talk about retention. He's going to talk about overhauling the program, and that was kind of the thing that took me by surprise when he used the word in particular of overhaul the program. And you talk about what he already had to deal with this last offseason of signing 60 new players, one of the most overhauls already in college football, let alone Conference USA. And then he's going to say he's overhauling again. And I don't necessarily disagree with him using that terminology, but it just goes to show that maybe this year wasn't what Mason thought it was going to be either. And whether it's about selling the product on the field when you're the new shiny object that's been dangled in front of the fans for the first time in 20 years, that maybe gets him excited. But I think overhaul is maybe the right move. I don't know if it's going to be staff overhauls, but I think more or less roster. And we'll kind of touch base with some of these guys that have already entered the portal so far. But he's got a great signing class coming ahead. Maybe I look too deep into this, Chip, and I'll turn it over to you as what are your thoughts on when he uses that kind of terminology?
Well, I deal with words just like you do, and Derek is not unintentional about the words he uses, and so I heard exactly the same thing that you played, and he was very similar on our post-game show with the comments that he made there. One of the other, speaking of words that he uses and phrases that he uses here in the last few weeks, he's used the term or the phrase year zero, and it's kind of speaking about the class they signed in December of last year, because basically that was a class that was signed almost sight unseen by him, other than than what he had seen on film, and a lot of the former staff was still here. And we've got evidence of past years that they had been able to sign good players, and you can still look around college football, and a lot of the guys that staff had signed here are playing well in other places. But there's the one thing that I always, whether it's players and coaches or coaches and schools or whatever, I think the word fit needs to be thrown in there too. Is it a good fit? Because I'm looking at two guys who went in the portal who I really hate to see go, Drew Francis and Devin Curtis, two guys who really played well here under Scott Schaefer. And, the new system that they came in just does not necessarily fit their skill sets. So there's where, I think here, after a year of this staff being in place and using Derek Mason's system, that, they're finding out, okay, are the players great fits for what they're trying to get done? And I know, smart coaches kind of fit their system to the talent they have, and this staff tried to do that as much as possible. But uh, you know, you're almost within a week of it, them being here exactly a year. And Derek told me during one of the Monday night radio shows, he feels so much more confident about uh, this high school class, or high school and junior college class, that they're looking to sign on December the 4th, in which will, as folks watch this tomorrow on Wednesday, that he said basically last year, as I mentioned, it was almost sight unseen. He goes, there's not a guy that Middle is going to sign on the 4th that they've not had a relationship with for nearly 12 months. And they've not a kid who has not been on campus, or they have not been in that kid's home or that school. So I think there's a much more higher level of confidence within the coaching staff of what they're bringing in, and also that I think it does give them, now that they've played a league schedule and gone through that, you have a much better feel about what do you need to compete and win in Conference USA, and I think I would bet a dollar to a donut hole that if you ask Derek Mason what you got to have, first thing that would come out of his mouth is we've got to get much, much better in the offensive and defensive lines. And I think that will come through the portal. And it's interesting, again, terminology. He talks about this week's signing day as the draft, and he talks about the portal as free agency. So he's kind of used the NFL terms and brought it into the college game, and really it's it is kind of a it kind of does fit a little bit better than than just portal and signing day. But it's always an exciting time to see see the kids that are going to be coming in.
Yeah, and I will go ahead and tease our next week's episode. I've got the guys coming in from GoMiddle.com that have had their boots on the ground talking to these kids. The number that we have right now is 16 that are supposed to be signing tomorrow, potentially, give or take a few. And then you got one preferred walk-on. And again, we'll have all the in-depth analysis on all of those signings that do come in this week. So obviously we'll be a week delayed, but of course, signings, not everyone does it on the same time. But back to the portal shopping of it all. Some of those names, especially in the linebacker group, Devin Curtis, Drew Francis, also on the defensive line, Aiden Merrihew, James Stewart, nickelback James Mons, wide receiver Omari Kelly, which a lot of people have really disappointed to hear, but I think a lot of us kind of saw that coming with the season that he had. Morgan Scott, Jayshon Bodiford, offensive lineman, and then, of course, Frank Peasant, who was injured very early on this year into the portal mid-season. But as of now, when we're recording this on a Monday night, we've got 9 players that are in the portal right now, and I would fully anticipate more to come, just to kind of fall back on that overhaul that he talked about. And the fit, that's the word that you used. I think that's also an excellent point when you're looking at this from a 1,000-point view, is that that this team in general, Mason didn't have the opportunity to lay eyes on these signings, and even to take it a step further as how the cards were stacked against him. When you are out of the game of football for even just a year, like Mason was, you don't have those connections with those guys. You are not in conversation with high school players on a weekly basis, where now that you're a head football coach for a Division I team, those conversations are happening on a regular basis. And again, I commend the process that he has done through this with recruiting. As you touched, every guy that is signing has been on campus. They have attended one football game at least. They were actually every one of them was offered in person on one of their official visits. That's something that, at least from my knowledge, again, I don't have a very extensive knowledge of this, but I would assume that that's a very rare case for any level of Division I, for him to want to be able to create some sort of personal connection with kids. And I think the selling point on that from a fan's perspective is hopefully that creates some level of continuity, some sort of culture, if you will. That's the buzzword that everyone likes to use with these kids, is that you've created this culture from day one, this family bond, if you will. So again, but to tease that, go back to that to next week. That episode will be Tuesday. Well, again, all the in-depth analysis on all these kids that are coming in. But another tidbit is 10 of these kids are from Rutherford County or neighboring counties. Again, something that was unheard of in years past with Stockstill's administration, is that you never had that opportunity to see these local kids. I think, again, when you talk about Mason as a CEO, he sees that as tickets sold. Because if you're within driving distance of Floyd Stadium, he likes to think that that's a selling point for the university. You're building a team that is from the community in and of itself, as opposed to, say, delving into the 3 stars that are in Florida and Georgia that kind of get lost in the crowd or in the shuffle. But this team is Middle Tennessee's team. It's, as he says, Burrow built. So I think that's something that I think is an interesting tactic. Whether that's a good tactic, I'm sure that's that hits the feel good bones. But is that makes the team better? I can't make that promise. But a lot of these kids, they look great on paper. So to wrap up the football talk here, I don't think as you see these names roll into the portal, you hit the panic button. I think this is all a part of the plan, if you will. And as Mason has said in times past on this show, that he's the CEO, he has an understanding of how this game works. And again, even the terminology that he uses, it makes you feel like he's in control. Give this guy year one, if you will, as he goes back to that year one mantra, year one, to really get things better. And again, we talk about scheduling. The non-conference schedule looks a little bit better. Marshall, Wisconsin will be tough games, but you feel good about your other two. I believe it's Austin P and Nevada, who's had a rough year. So, but all things considered, I look forward to next year. And I think, again, his attitude of keeping receipts is one that, again, I commend. I think that's the attitude you got to have. You can go into this doom and gloom, but I think Mason's got the right head on his shoulders for this.
Well, and I think, too, we all are looking at our own situation, but if you back up and look at across the board in college football uh, and college basketball, what's happening here is happening everywhere. I mean, it's if there's 9 in the portal here, I would say there's probably 9 in the portal in Bowling Green or Sam Houston or New Mexico State, somewhere across the way. It's just the way of the world. Again, I'm old school enough to where, I hate seeing Devin Curtis and Drew Francis go because they're such good guys. I know Drew's dad, Jeff. I saw him at the game on Saturday. Omari Kelly, here's a guy who had 5 career catches before he came to Middle, has a breakout year. And I think old school fans are the disappointment would be, well, don't you have any gratitude to the program that gave you the opportunity to have this kind of year, but instead you're walking away? That's where the rub is for me sometimes. But he is a nice kid, and wish him well. And I you know I don't have any knowledge, but you would think that if he kind of tested the waters and it wasn't what he was looking for, the door might be open to come back. I don't know what Derek's attitude is about that. Kind of a Justin Porter situation that we had in basketball this year. Maybe it's that way in football. I don't know, what his, the rules are about that within his own mind, but it's an exciting time. And here, I'll throw a little piece of a theory out here. We've got 14 coaches, 14 job openings that have happened already in college football. The December signing class, their signing date moved about 2 weeks earlier this year. It was like 15th or somewhere last year. Now it moved to the 4th. I'm going to put a theory out there that we've had way more coaching changes mid-season this year across the country, simply because athletic directors feel like they need to get ahead of the game when it comes to hiring a coach. Well, now you rush up the signing date, and everybody wants to have their coach in place by signing date. Well, because that happened 2 weeks earlier, are they firing coaches 2 weeks earlier, across the board? And, in Conference USA, you're going to have an opening at Sam Houston. You've got an opening at FIU. Where else? Is that it right now?
Kennesaw State had an opening, but they've
already filled their opening.
Right.
So that's 3 out of 10 where there's going to be changes this year. So it's just part of the process.
Right. Well, and even there's conversations about Jamie Chadwell going to West Virginia. There was conversations about Tyson Helton maybe taking the ECU job, which they've already upgraded they promoted their interim head coach. But Tyson Helton would still be certainly a conversation piece for somebody. And I would like to think that Rich Rodriguez would be too for the 2 seasons that he's put together with Jacksonville State, all things considered. So. But to your point, like maybe it's already too late. Like if you're Western Kentucky, if you're Liberty, you can't afford to let that guy walk at this juncture. So you've got to be able to do whatever it takes to keep those guys there. So it is definitely, that's I would say it's a pretty sound theory, because that was kind of the situation that Mason got put into last year. I think his hiring was middle of December, around signing day. Obviously those kids weren't his. and he had to do what he could to get the last bit of pickings from the portal. And a lot of these kids are. I mean, I'm sure they're already getting. I don't know what the stipulation is on how soon these portal entries can receive calls. I would assume they can't get anything technically until the 9th when the portal actually opens. But I'm sure there's some backdoor route that you got to get in with these kids as soon as you possibly can. So, yeah, we'll have plenty of that coming up again next week's episode. But let's turn the attention to some positive things this last weekend. Basketball, we got the big win down at UAB in Birmingham. You were there. The first win in Bartow Arena since 2019. That was Donovan Sims, I believe Antonio Green were a part of that team. They were a big part of that win, I'm sure. But a near wire-to-wire victory in Birmingham. I don't think, myself included, I thought a win was possible, but a wire-to-wire victory like that, a team that for the second time this year has taken an AAC team wire-to-wire and played effectively, all things considered, with a run there in the second half, but played well against both South Florida and now UAB. I'm impressed, and that says a lot with the two AAC teams that they've beaten thus far.
Yeah, you look at the last four away from Murphy Center. Middle's 3-1 in those 4 games away from Murphy Center. Ohio U was the preseason pick to win the MAC by a large margin, and they're really good. South Florida won 25 last year and was the regular season champion in the American, and they returned a good bit of their firepower from last year. Bradley is the preseason pick to win the Missouri Valley. Murray, by the way, was picked 3rd. And then you have UAB, who, believe it or not, was picked ahead of Memphis. And we saw what Memphis could do last week. I don't know whether, with the prognosticators, whether they weren't quite sure what Memphis had from a talent standpoint, or whether the penny effect came into their voting choices or whatever. But UAB won the American tournament a year ago, and Yaxel Lindeborg was the preseason American Player of the Year. Yeah, they're 3-5 right now, and not in sync quite as much as they'd like to be. But they showed spurts on Sunday of exactly just how good they can be, and Lindeborg had spurts of just how dominant he can be. So UAB is going to be just fine. If you remember a year ago, they came to Murphy Center right after Cam Weston had been injured, and Middle was trying to use some duct tape and baling wire to pull things together, and that was a 58-57 UAB win that Middle could have very easily gotten. If they had one last shot to fall, could have won that one. But UAB was, what my point is they really came on once the conference season gets here, and Andy Kennedy again has put together a team that has incredible wingspan. They're big, they're physical, and obviously from what we saw in the first half, they can rebound the heck out of it. And Middle was able to make some adjustments, turn that around a little bit, and get a huge win in my book down at Bartow.
Yeah, and as you said, they'll be fine. That team is very talented, and out of sorts, I think, is putting it nicely with Andy Kennedy and the way his style is. Always going to be a great rebounding team, but if they can figure out how to get some guard play going, I think they made some crucial mistakes there late in that game, switching up into man, because zone was working relatively well for us when they went on that run. And kudos to McDevitt for challenging that man defense, giving it to Mostafa there late, getting to the rim, getting those fouls, getting the free throws, because I think that's ultimately what won it. And again, I give a big hats off to Justin Buford. I've been one of his bigger critics this year because of the step back he took offensively last year, and then he scores 15 Sunday night. So a big kudos to Justin Buford, the leader that he is. We know how good defensively he is, but it's good to see that offensive outbreak. And then again, to go to those that are listening, I really encourage you to stick around to the player interview with Jlynn Counter at the end of this episode. One of my favorite player interviews I've ever done. He's a great character. He's a great kid. And of course, the elephant in the room is he okay? Obviously, he'll answer that question for you. And if you follow anything on gomiddle.com, you'll know he is fine. We're looking forward to seeing them hopefully sometime soon. I know he was dressed there on Sunday, didn't see any minutes. But the thing that I want to turn this conversation to is what this team has been, but what this team could be with Jlynn Counter. We saw what they did with Ohio, where he came out as a starting point guard over Cam Weston. There's no love law. Those two, they're roommates. They get along just fine. So for them to be of a winning mentality, as Jlynn will put it, is just kind of the chemistry you need at the point guard position that we missed desperately last year. But even to go back to the UAB game with Jlynn Counter out, you saw Justin be the point guard there late. The comfort level that I think, although last year wasn't the season we wanted, I think maybe is the season that Justin Porter needed to take his game kind of create some sort of utility in his game, if you will, to be able to play the 1 and the 2. But then the other big question mark is the Alec Oglesby. What does he provide to this team coming up? And hopefully, again, another guy that has been speculated to be ramping up his productivity in practices. He's in contact drills now. So, is the Rhodes the game where we might get a sneak peek? And then is he the guy that we need to finally get a win over a Missouri Valley team on Saturday?
Yeah, well, that'll be. Those are all good questions. I go back to you talk about Jlynn. I go back to July, late July, I guess, and they come on June the 6th or something. Everybody was here except Mustafa, and you always trying to figure out the new guys and how what kind of improvement the old guys, the returning guys have made, and it was evident immediately to me that Jlynn Counter was something really special, and he brings a level of maturity, calmness, uh, you know, whatever other combination you have out there, in critical situations, if you have Jlynn and Isam Mustafa on the floor, I think they give this lineup some calmness and no panic. I think about you know kind of how we were playing against Ohio U in a situation where you're trying to cut into a lead, and you know in that last 2 or 3 minutes of regulation, Middle didn't go down and just jack up desperation threes. I mean, they played it the way you're supposed to. The book tells you to play it. Get the twos, get the foul. They'll miss, get it back, and cut into it that way, or get a rebound, get a stop. And Jlynn really brings a lot to the table there. Alec Oglesby, I mean, I saw him before. He had some surgery, and he's 40% from three for his career, and that doesn't happen by accident. And he was a big part of a team that was in the NCAA tournament a year ago at Stetson. He is back full go in practice. I don't have any direct knowledge, but I would think that Rhodes on Wednesday night a uh, is an opportunity for him to get some minutes and get some live action, and whether Jlynn comes back or not, I'm not sure. When I saw him the other day, he told me the same thing. He goes, "Hey, I'm fine," and but he's I think they've got a real good chemistry, a really good mix of guys this year, and I've said this to other people before. I think that when you look at the 6 players that have come in and then the 6 players that left for one reason or another, whether it was graduation or transfer or whatever, that they're in a much better spot today than they were at this point 1 year ago.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think at this part of the season last year, we were kind of scrambling a little bit. I know, like as you mentioned, the UAB game, you're thinking, okay, well, we can still win games without Cam Weston. I think that that was just kind of a perfect storm in that particular game, because at this point, things started to turn downhill a little bit for him. But as of now, I feel like everything's upticking, and again, Jlynn will speak to this in his interview later on. That they take full responsibility for what happened in that Murray State game. They're fully aware that game got out of hand. That's something that they will prove that will never happen again this season. And as what we've seen so far, I'd have to think that they're on the right track to do that. And even the Bradley loss, I think Bradley's just a darn good team. Like I don't put too much against them. That team, you talk about continuity in today's game, they're full of it. You talk about a team that can just shoot the ball well. They've got 8 guys on that team that can just shoot lights out any given night of the week. So that's a good team. And really, the score doesn't indicate how good of a game that really was. I think you played that as good as you possibly can on a neutral floor. And again, you can talk about the chemistry these guys are still working with. They're still creating. What does this team look like with another guard on the floor with Oglesby? Maybe things change a little bit in that Bradley game. So again, the 2 losses in general. The Murray State game, I don't think anyone's gonna make any excuses that they didn't perform that day. And then Bradley, again, I think they just played a really darn good team that day in particular. So I look forward to what this team has to offer again with Belmont this Saturday, another team that has kind of given us trouble, but this is always a great rivalry. Of course, it's a doubleheader this Saturday as well. So any Blue Raider fans that are looking to get both of your basketball teams in on one day, the ladies tip at 12, the men are immediately after at 2:30. My understanding is you get 1 ticket for the price, or you get 2 tickets for the price of 1 there at the Curb Event Center. So a lot of good basketball. I look forward to Belmont this Saturday for both teams, for that matter. Ladies get a little revenge, and men, get that first MVC win out of underneath your belt.
Yep, exactly. And in Belmont, and as you look forward on the men's schedule, what you've got left between now and Christmas, you've got Belmont, you've got Cal Baptist at home, you've got Lipscomb at home, who Lipscomb is really good this year, and then you go to Knoxville to take on Tennessee. So, and if I'm correct, is Tennessee number 1 in the net or when it came out today?
Today,
So,
yep.
yeah, so you've got that on your schedule, and I think as the year has developed, this schedule, and in particular the way things fell in that tournament, this schedule is going to be easily the toughest out of conference schedule in Conference USA this year. And so far, they're handling their business, and they're looking forward to the challenges they've got coming up in the next 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. And again, credit to Conference USA for what they've done too to kind of boost the how strong this conference really is. I know the conference net has them as the 8th best conference. Unfortunately, Louisiana Tech has a disappointing loss to Southern, so really your 2 bid opportunities has dwindled down to Liberty at this point, who's had a very good non-conference season, as we thought that they would. But anyways, lastly, as we wrap up here, Lady Raiders, they are in Fort Myers this last weekend. They get a win over Purdue and a rather defensive slugfest that I didn't anticipate happening. But you pulled out the win there. And then, of course, the Iowa State game, which wasn't the results you were looking for. And really, when I talk about the Lady Raiders, the one thing you hate, obviously, is you lost your second P4 game. You lost to Tennessee earlier in the year. Now you've lost to Ohio State. You still have an opportunity with Kansas State coming up in a couple weeks at a technically neutral floor, but for all intensive purposes, that's a road contest as you're going all the way up there to Kansas. But for them, what are you seeing? Like the thing is, for me, I think they look great and they're winning the games that they should be winning. But there's just something about their game that's just missing in the Tennessee game in particular, as well as this Iowa State game.
Well, Tamia Scott is playing terrifically, and I don't know that I don't know what's missing is Courtney Blakely has moved in, and is she is she Savannah Wheeler? No. Is Savannah Wheeler Courtney Blakely? No. So there's I think it may be just the difference in Savannah and Courtney, because you look around you've got Jalen Gregory. Now, to me, I thought something was missing with her early because she was having a hard time shooting the basketball. She's since come on, and it has started to fall. Uh, you know, Boldreva is not going to sneak up on anybody this year. Angel Reese made sure that the world knew who Boldreva was last year in the NCAA tournament. And when you're that size, you're going to have a bullseye on your back. One thing I was really happy to see in the FAMU game was how deep he went into his bench before they played Purdue, and I think that will help develop. Um, I think this team is in really good position to do exactly what they did a year ago, or maybe even more. Uh, but I think Savannah Wheeler was such a scoring minded point guard. Courtney, her main thing is to get the ball delivered. So are all the other pieces going to continue to score the basketball like they want to? I think shooting percentage overall they want to get up a little bit. Defensively, they've been really good. Iowa State is just a different kind of animal than what you're going to have to play on a night in night out basis in Conference USA. But you know they've got a couple of big games coming up. They've got to go to Cal Baptist, then they've got to come back all the way across the country and play Princeton, and against some, and Princeton's a team that they're looking for a little revenge on as well as Belmont. So nothing shabby about what they've got between now and Christmas either, and just they're trying to get themselves in position to continue is a very long winning streak in Conference USA right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of this can get lost, and maybe us as fans are a little bit spoiled because you go into the games like the Tennessees and the Iowa States, and you put yourself ahead in a lot of those games mentally, and then the outcome isn't what you want. But I think a lot of us are a little bit spoiled in the fact that this team is still very capable of going 18-0 in Conference USA. And actually, when you go to Warren Nolan and you do the RPI net predictions based on whatever algorithm they use, they both predict us out as perfect. I think again, there's still obviously positive signs on the statistics side of things that points to this team still being very good. But what is it that keeps them out of these bigger games? And again, they still have opportunities to really test themselves with that, with Kansas State on the 14th. But this week, SIU Edwardsville, a team that is 1-5. I had the opportunity to watch some film in their Central Florida game where they narrowly lost there on the road in Orlando. They're better than their record entails. Belmont this Saturday, that would be a good win. Princeton on the road, especially there in New Jersey, would be a good win. Not the same Princeton team that we saw last year with Caitlin Chin, but Madison St. Rose is still there. She's still scoring 20, 25 points a night. So that'll be a great contest for them to, again, put on their resume for them. I think ultimately, though, don't get down on your Lady Raiders. And as you said, I think the getting deeper in the bench is promising. We saw a lot more Jada Harrison, especially a lot more Savannah Davis this last week, who is obviously going to be a big part of the future of this team moving forward. But I think the Lady Raiders are in a good spot. Obviously, I think if you weather away a little run there in the middle of that Iowa State game, you have a different outcome altogether. But I think the Lady Raiders will do just fine. But Chip, I've taken you for all the time I can possibly get, because I know you have been all over the place, and so I appreciate you taking the time again to join us with your busy schedule. Best of luck with your fundraiser this evening, and of course share the social media where people can find your stuff, as well as where they can listen to your voice Raider games.
Well, of course on Twitter, I'm at Choose Chip. I'm Chip Walters, or Blue Raider Network on Facebook. And then they can hear our games, of course, on WGNS, also on Totally Hits 93.3, 95.1. And then you've got, of course, the MTSU app, as well as GoBlueRaiders.com. And on the TuneIn app, you can catch us there. So you can, every game is streaming. And for folks who have not downloaded the MTSU app, do that. The Blue Raider Athletics app. It's the broadcast of every event we do is on there, and it's pretty close to real time as you can get it on a stream, and you can also find the archives if should you choose to go back and do that. But always appreciate the time, Jake, and let's have a good signing day coming up on Wednesday.
Absolutely, and again, I will echo that. Do the Blue Raider app. I was too surprised there on social media that some people hadn't even heard of it. Sam had mentioned it, that he was listening to you on the way as he was traveling for vacation this last weekend to his family in North Carolina. He's listening to the game. If you don't know, get on the app. It's great not only for that, but it's your resource for tickets as well as everything at GoBlueRaiders.com as well. So, Chip, best of luck to you this weekend there in Chattanooga. I know you'll be nice and warm up in your press box, but lots of good football. I know you said 3A, you got Alcoa, 5A, that's Page, right? So you got some local teams, Sevier County as well.
Yep, and got Columbia Academy and Nashville Christian on Thursday, so it's a lot of fun. Little tidbit about the Blue Cross Bowl. About 5 or 6 years ago, Kelly and I had the Class A championship game. It was Greenback against somebody. Guess who our featured player was in the pregame show?
Holden Willis.
Holden Willis. That's right. So life comes full circle.
That's right. Well, and then you got Sevier County, who's got Otto Van Rensburg, the offensive lineman there for Sevier County. So you got some more future Blue Raiders there. So that's exciting stuff. Well, Chip, I'll let you go. I appreciate you taking the time to join us.
All right. Thanks, man.
The BRP is proudly partnered with Rivals Network affiliate GoMiddle.com. Subscribe for premium content for all the inside scoop on MTSU athletics, recruiting, or join our free forums to discuss today's episode and all things Blue Raiders. The BRP is also partnered with the College Huddle, a nationwide collaborative effort with over 80 Division I programs represented. Check out the website at thecollegehuddle.com to catch up on all college football content with daily articles and episodes provided by the largest college podcast community on the internet.
Joining us now on the Blue Raider podcast is our player exclusive interview this week. He is the senior point guard from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, joining the Raiders from IUPUI. It is Jlynn Counter. Jlynn, how's it going, man?
Man, I'm doing pretty well. Glad I went home. You know, that was a long, I wouldn't say vacation, but long tournament. I'm glad, you know, we're back home, get to spend some time in my bed.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room because the fans all want to know about it. You went down early in that South Florida game on Friday. Luckily, it sounds like everything's okay. Can you give us an update on the injury?
No, all I can say is just a lower leg injury, left knee, and then I'm feeling pretty well, so I should be back soon.
Well, that's excellent to hear. A lot of us were worried, but one thing, the reason a lot of us are worried is because of the season that you've had in the early going this year. Definitely, I talked to Nick in the preseason about you. You were kind of more than what the team had offered, or what you were more than what the team had thought you would be, which is obviously a testament to the level that you've put in up to this point. Tell me a little bit about your journey to get here to Murfreesboro. What was the recruiting process like? Your decision to go in the transfer portal? Tell us a little bit about that journey and kind of grade how you've done so far this season.
Oh, no, yes. I come from IUPUI, where I spent my last 2 years. You know, after Crenshaw got fired, that kind of made my final decision when I got into the portal. I was recruited pretty hard. It wasn't any Power Fives, anything in that nature. And then when I came down to deciding, you know, two schools, it was between MTSU and SIUE. One of the coaches from SIUE got a new job at Southern Illinois University. And then that kind of made my final decision MTSU, and I'm glad I did. You know, McDevitt did a great job of recruiting me. Eric Wilson was the first one that reached out to me. We hit it off, you know, immediately, man. You know, he checked in with me every day, and that was, you know, big in the transfer portal recruiting process. Like, you want to go to a place where, you know, where you wanted, where you loved, man, and that's why I decided to choose MTSU. They have great hospitality when I came in on my recruit and visit. And, you know, just Murfreesboro is a city, man. You know, I've watched Reggie play when he back in the day when they beat Michigan State. So I kind of knew, you know, what type of program I was getting myself into. And that's what made my final decision.
Does Reggie ever kind of flex on you guys with the picture that's hanging there of him dunking on Michigan State?
Nah, Reg ain't never say anything like that. And that's why I love Reg, man. You know, very humble guy. You know, we all respect him because every time you walk in, you know, to the arena, in the locker room, that's all you do is see him. And he has so many different haircuts. You know, we troll about him about that. But nah, Reg, man, he's very humble, man. You know, he never says anything like that. What he said, what I will say, he hopefully, man, we can make a run so we can take his pictures down and hopefully put ours up there.
That's right. It's a great mentality to have for certain. But I want to hear from you as well. We talk about the discussions with Nick McDevitt and even going into the tournament there in Myrtle Beach. You know, Cam had been the starter. We all projected him to be the starter. You came off the bench in those first couple games. You put up 15 points in most of those contests. Do you feel more comfortable coming off the bench? Do you like starting games? Obviously you have different outcomes, and you only had one real game starting at point guard before the injury at South Florida. But, is there a comfort level with either one of those?
It's definitely different coming off the bench. I played, started in the last 4 schools I've been at, if you're dating back to prep school. But at the end of the day, man, I'm here to win. I'm not worried about, who starts, who doesn't. At the end of the day, I play, heavy minutes. This team relies, kind of relies on me a little bit. So, like, when it comes to starting, man, I'm a big, team guy. I came here to win. I want to win. That's like recruited me to win. And then it's also cool that I'm playing behind when the games that I didn't start, and I'm playing behind P and Cam, but like, hey, those are two just very unselfish guys. So they make my job way easier. Say, like, if I come in, like I started the last 2 games that I played, Cam wasn't selfish about it, man. He let me know, man, like, hey, let's go in, let's push with pace, control the team, man. Then also when he's in and I'm out, man, we have that same type of respect for each other. So it's easy, man, when you play with just such unselfish group of guys.
What's that kind of push-pull like with you and Cam? I know, like you said, you guys are great teammates with one another. Obviously, you push each other a lot in practice because you in a way, you have a similar game. You both have great vision, but he kind of has the more finesse game. And the thing about you that at least I enjoy watching is your more downhill presence at the rim. So when you talk about you guys feeding off of one another, what's kind of those things that you guys have worked on, the chemistry you guys have built in these few months you've known each other?
Well, Cam is my roommate, so that's what makes it way easier. We're both point guards, man. We both like to win. Style of play is kind of similar, but also different, man. He has that finesse. And us being roommates is probably the biggest factor. Like, I hang out with him, like, probably here in a couple of minutes, man. We'll go out to like a little area, our living room, man. We'll probably just chill, listen to music. He has a great music taste. I will give him that. I steal his music from time to time, but that's one thing that was big. And also, when you're trying to build chemistry with the teammate, man, you gotta know what he likes outside the court, and that's what makes it just so much easier. I get to know what he likes, what he doesn't like, what type of food does he like, type of music genre. It's just easier when you know somebody off the court. So that's why it's easy to gel on the court.
That brings me, we'll go a little bit of the conversation off the court with you. What's the life been like for you adjusting to Murfreesboro? I know you're an Oklahoma City guy. You spent a couple years up in Indianapolis. Now you're back in Murfreesboro. Obviously, the climate, the weather is a lot better here. How are you adjusting to it? How are the guys like Cam, who've been here for a couple of years, helped you adjust?
Well, I'm glad because, Indianapolis, man, we didn't have, I didn't like the food there, to be honest with you. Murfreesboro, man, they have a little bit of everything. Wingstop right around the corner right from me, Waffle House. They have the Walmart Supercenter, and then also Cookout was one of the first things that I've tried. Man, it's cheap, it's good. You get about 3 entrees for $10. And then what the team has done, they've been here for so long, so they know the ins and outs, what places are good, what places are not good. And then me not having, a vehicle, I ride with Cam, we'll grab something to eat, or he'll put me on to what spots that he likes or doesn't like. That's how it goes.
Where's a spot to eat here in Murfreesboro for you?
Okay, Wingstop is definitely number one, high level. I get the 10-piece wings. When it comes to the fries and ranch, I think that they have one of the best fries and ranch combo in the country, so I like that a lot. I'm a big Waffle House fan. I'm a big breakfast fan, so that's why I'll eat Dunkin', get about 2 or 3 croissants there with the orange juice. Miss Mary Ann's, which I stay at East Main, they're right across the street from me. They do a great job there. I like their catfish. They have wings, and it's very cheap too as well. And then I want to say probably Cookout probably be the last one.
You mentioned the wings at Wingstop. Murfreesboro's got their local joint, Toots. Now, I ask you this. Are you going to make some friends? Are you going to hurt a lot of fans' feelings here? Have you been to Toots? And if so, what's the honest opinion on the wings there?
Sounds like I'm going to hurt a couple of people's feelings, man. I have not.
Oh, well, at least you're saying you haven't had it. It's better than saying it's bad, right? So that's your opportunity right here for PR training. Jlynn, you got to, in the day of NIL, you've got to say, yes, I've had it. It's the best wings ever. Send me some money. That's how you get the sponsorships to roll in for you.
That's what I need to start focusing on, though. Okay.
Well, I would say the attention more on basketball. Right, absolutely.
I'm gonna use it.
There you go. Well, one more thing. I couldn't help as I was doing a little research about, who you are. I saw in August you went to a rodeo. I know you're from Oklahoma City. That is popular there. Have you been turned to anything like that here in Nashville? Obviously, you got the country music scene, that kind of thing. Is that something you've kind of delved into since you've been here?
Not yet. I mean, you can't come to Tennessee and not have any pair of boots. Me being in Oklahoma, it's been a minute since I've gotten to that country swagger or whatnot. So that has been the first boots I purchased myself. But no, you can't come to Tennessee and not have a pair of boots. So when I went home, once I landed, I got me a pair of boots and also went to a rodeo. That was my first rodeo that I've got to experience, man, and I liked it a lot. We was able to get into the pit, right up close to the horses, and hey, them horses, man, they're very big. So nah, man. So I mean, like I said previously, man, you can't come to Tennessee and not have a pair of boots.
Absolutely. Well, Jlynn, as I let you go here, one last thing, we'll turn the conversation back to basketball here. You guys have obviously impressed a lot of fans, and I think you knew that more than anybody as what this team is capable of, and you're really getting into the meat of the non-conference schedule now. What's the outlook for this team? Tell us what you think is they're doing really well right now, what they need to continue to do well to succeed when conference season comes around after New Year's.
Okay, yeah. Oh no, like I said previously, man, we have a lot of unselfish guys, man. We play very unselfish. We have well, recently, man, when we played, I want to say it was at South Florida. That's when we started hitting shots, man, and we ended up putting up 95. So when we can do that, man, we're very, very dangerous. As when we have Kamari, and then once we get AO back as well with P and no scoring, and you got the double machine down there with the sign. But now we've been playing with great pace. We've been guarding very, very well over the tournament. We played really well, man. We play together, play hard. That's the number one thing you can do, man. And at mid-major level, man, you got to be able to play hard in order to get yourself a chance. At the Murray State game, that's one thing that coaches said, after we watched film, man, like it looked like we didn't want to be out there, and I didn't like that as the fans was watching that, and then obviously, hopefully, man, they tuned in, to that Myrtle Beach Invitational, man. They seeing like, we learned from that, man. And when we get back to town, they won't see that ever again in the Murphy Center.
That's right. Well, a lot to like there in Myrtle Beach. Absolutely. We look forward to the rest of the way, especially your game as well, Jlynn. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and obviously we wish you a speedy recovery, and we look forward to you this season.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.
Did you know the Blue Raider podcast has an online store? You can now support your favorite podcast by checking out our selection at our website, blueraiderpodcast.com. And stay tuned for new merchandise releases as we collaborate with athletes in NIL partnerships.
Thanks for tuning into the Raider wrap-up portion of the episode where we will review this last week in Blue Raider athletics and a look ahead to the schedule of this upcoming week. And we will start things off with the Lady Raiders basketball team that was in Florida this last week. They started the week off on Tuesday against Florida A&M in Tallahassee, where they defeated the Lady Rattlers by a score of 80-54. Just want to highlight the starters there. Played a good majority of the first 20 minutes and got out to a comfortable 62-17 lead. And as Chip had mentioned in our interview, the reserves got plenty of minutes there late in that game and still put in some quality time there, but won that game 80-54. And then at the Fort Myers tip-off, they faced Purdue on Thanksgiving on Thursday, won that contest 54-49. Big thanks to Anastasia Bolder-Reva's double-double that day. And then Iowa State lost on Saturday by a score of 59-75. Our player of the week will go to Anastasia Bolder-Reva, who was the Conference USA Player of the Week for her 52 points and 23 rebounds this last week. I'd also like to throw in that she had 7 blocks over those 3 games. So big week for Bolder-Reva, as well. I'm sure that she'll have the rest of the way. This upcoming week, we have on Wednesday morning, they will face off against SIU Edwardsville as a part of the Education Day game there in Murphy Center. That game will be viewable on ESPN Plus for those that can't make the midday game. And then on Saturday is a part of the doubleheader. They are the opening act at the 12 p.m. tip-off against Belmont. A lot to go for there on Saturday, trying to revenge that loss that you had last year also at the Curb Event Center. So a lot of eyes there as far as getting yourself on track and beating a good Missouri Valley Conference team that is Belmont, as they always are, and hopefully get yourself a big win there on Saturday. So I can't preach enough to the contingency of fans that will typically travel for road games, be there on Saturday, big game against the Bruins. Football dropped their regular season finale there in Miami at Pitbull Stadium against the FIU Panthers by a score of 24-35. Not too much to necessarily harp on, just a really big hole you dug yourself there in the first half, and you gave it a valiant effort there late, but it was just too little too late. But a big shout out to Holden Willis, who was our player of the week, who got 6 receptions for 123 yards and 2 touchdowns in his final game there in the blue and white. So I hate to miss him, but I'm glad he had a final game like that for the books. And we turn our attention to next week. Or to this next week with signing week, as well as the portal opening. So that'll be a week as of Monday, the 9th, when that portal will open. So we'll see a lot of names go in there for MTSU as they continue to stack up this week. And then obviously what moves we decide to make is we certainly, I'm sure we will address the offensive line, defensive line with the portal. But of course, many names will be rolling in from high school as well. So keep your eyes peeled there. Men's basketball had just the solo game at Birmingham this last week where they defeated the Blazers 76-69. I give our player of the week to Justin Buford, who had a career high of 15 points and 5 rebounds in that game. A guy that has had his struggles offensively last season, but seems to be coming around and fitting with this new chemistry of players in the backcourt. And putting up good numbers, 15 points, not too shabby for a guy that, again, has had his offensive struggles. So I'm happy to see that things are turning around for Buford. As he's an integral part, especially on the defensive end. But if he has the year that he had his sophomore season, again, just another weapon that this offensive backcourt has. So I'm excited for him. And then, of course, their schedule for this upcoming week, they play Rhodes College Wednesday night at 6:30 at Murphy Center. And then they will face off as the back end of the doubleheader at the Curb Event Center in Nashville against the Belmont Bruins. The men will tip off at 2:30 p.m. But don't come just for the men. You get 2 games for the price of 1, so be there for the ladies at noon and then stick around for the men at 2:30. And that will pretty much do it for our Raider wrap-up portion of the episode. I appreciate, again, everyone that tuned into today's episode. A big thanks to our sponsors, the Conseco Group, as well as Mighty Dog Roofing Nashville East. Big thanks to our guests today, Chip Walters and Jlynn Counter. I look forward to next week's episode where we will have the guys from Go Middle. That's Shane Pickering, Connor Smith, as well as Austin Lewis. We will have a big roundtable talking about all the signings that are going to be coming through tomorrow and later on into the week, and that will premiere on Tuesday. We'll have all in-depth analysis on all of your new signees. We'll have some game film on these guys, and we'll have some breakdown with the guys from Go Middle. So everything you could possibly want, especially as time dwindles down as we transition from our fall to winter sports. So big episode ahead. I look forward to it. Again, if you're not following us on all of our socials, I encourage you to do so you don't miss some of these signings coming up tomorrow, as well as everything that we're doing here at the Blue Raider Podcast moving forward. That's at Blue Raider Pod. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Of course, if you're listening, we're on YouTube at Blue Raider Pod. If you're not listening us to YouTube, go over there, subscribe to us, like the video. Really appreciate it. We're getting close to that 100 subscriber mark as we close up on a year of the Blue Raider Podcast. It's been a fun time thus far, and I look forward to bringing more content, more interviews with players that you guys love to hear from. So, again, thanks for sticking around, and until next time, go Blue.